Hi guys, my name's Lana. Welcome to my channel. I'm a mum of two and I have recently just given birth to my second baby, baby Riley. He is now 7 weeks old. It's gone so quick, and I am now sat down finally to film a birth story video. So I really like watching these myself, so I hope that you guys find this interesting and you might get something from it. So I will just jump straight into the video and let you know how baby Riley came into the world. So Riley was born 2 days before his due date. So he was due on the 26th of April and he was born on the 24th. And I actually did end up having an induction. So the whole way along my pregnancy, they were telling me that this baby was big and potentially I would need to be induced a little bit before my due date so that Riley didn't get too big and get stuck, or there was any complications with actually having him. I was a little bit kind of dubious and on the fence the whole way through my pregnancy. I wasn't sure. I mean, I did think that he was a big baby and I did believe the doctors when they were telling me he was big, but they were telling me that he was like 8 pounds and that he was going to be over 9 pounds when he was born, and I was just thinking to myself, no, surely not. Like, Daisy was only 7'13" and me and Matt are quite small people, and I was just thinking, no, he won't be. So I didn't really want an induction. Kind of the whole way along my pregnancy, when they kept mentioning it, I was thinking, oh no, and if he's big, he'll come naturally a bit earlier, maybe on his own. I was thinking, you know, he might just get to like, I don't know, 8 pounds and then just suddenly be born because, you know, he's at that size. So kind of from 37 weeks, I was just hoping that he would just make an appearance on his own. And in my last video, my last pregnancy update video, I was 37 weeks and I was telling you guys like about all of this potential inductions and all the growth scans that I'd been having. And in that video I was like, oh, you know, I might have him soon because he, you know, he is a really decent size and my bump was really big. Everyone kept commenting like anytime I went anywhere, it was like, oh my gosh, how many, like, how close are you? Like, have you got twins in there? Like, everyone was commenting on how big my belly was. And yeah, so I just thought, oh, he'll come on his own. But we had another growth scan at 39 weeks because he still wasn't here at 39 weeks. I think it was 39 plus 1. And they told me at that scan that he was 8 pounds 13. And I thought to myself, okay, well, can we get him out now then, please? Because yeah, I wasn't really wanting an induction, but they told me that and I was like, okay, I'm a bit scared now. That sounds like a big baby. The doctor was feeling my tummy as well, and she said, like, I can feel a lot of baby in there. It's not just like loads of fluid or anything. They made the plan to set up an induction for 2 days after my due date. And I was a bit like, oh, okay, but still kind of just hoping that he would come naturally on his own before. Anyway, fast forwards to 38 plus 5 it would have been, so the 24th of April. I'd been having some reduced movements and I wasn't particularly happy with how Riley was inside, so I went into the hospital and I was hooked up to the monitor just to check that he was okay. He was absolutely fine, and actually once I'd kind of laid down and sat still, I felt him moving fine, so I wasn't particularly worried. But then the doctor came in and he said, you know, we can see that your baby's really big and you're booked in for an induction soon. Anyway, I was booked in on the 28th and I was due on the 26th. So let's just get you started with the induction today. And I was like, ah, and I kind of wanted to say no because I was a bit scared. I was like, oh my God, no, like I just wanted him to come on his own. So I was just like, ah. But then I went home and I spoke to Matt and I just said, you know, actually this might work out quite well because we were also moving house that week, like typical, everything always happens at once, doesn't it? And yeah, we were literally going to be moving on the 29th of April. So I just said, you know, it's the 24th today, let's just try and get him out. And hopefully then by the end of the week, like, you know, at least we'll be home to be able to move. But anyway, Matt agreed and we were happy to go in that evening for the induction. We had some nice time in the afternoon with Daisy. Yeah, it was really weird, a really weird feeling thinking that this is going to be the last time that it's just us three, or 4 if you include the dog. So anyway, we said goodbye to Daisy because she went to her nanny's for a sleepover, and then we headed down to the antenatal like induction ward. I think we got there at about 3 o'clock, 3:30, and then the doctor put us up onto the monitor. I had the belly bands on again and baby was fine, and then they basically were talking to me about a little bit of a plan of action as to how they were going to induce me. they basically said that they would give me an examination and go from there. So they examined me and they said that my cervix was dilated enough to be able to just go ahead and break my waters. So I didn't need a pessary or a gel or any oxytocin. Like, I literally just needed my waters breaking, and then hopefully Riley would just come from that. So yeah, they broke my waters. That was an experience. It actually hurt, but I wasn't expecting it to hurt because I'd had stretch and sweeps a couple of days previous, which hadn't worked. But when I had the stretch and sweep, it didn't hurt, it was fine. So I kind of expected it to be a bit like that, but they got this kind of big plastic rod. So they did a stretch and sweep essentially, and then they kind of put the plastic rod like into the cervix slightly, and then we're just trying to sort of fiddle around and break the waters essentially. They were saying that Riley, because he was so engaged, the waters were like really tight on his head. They were like a swimming hat, they said, on his head. So I think they were just struggling a little bit to pop the waters because the like sac was so tight. They did pop them eventually, and that was such a weird feeling because with my first baby, with Daisy, I was in the pool when my waters broke, so I didn't like really notice it. I didn't really feel it that much. But this, it was like a proper gush, and then kind of any time I would like move around on the bed, more would come out, and it was such a weird feeling. But I was really excited actually at that point because I thought, yeah, this is it, like we're gonna have him. And yeah, I was up for it. I was quite, I wasn't feeling nervous, I was excited, and I think I was just really relieved that I didn't need any of the like hormone sort of supplements, if that makes sense. I was happy just to sort of have my waters broken and then hopefully just go on naturally from there. So they monitored baby for 30 minutes after my waters were broken just to make sure that he was okay. He was absolutely fine. So then they took me off the monitor and they said go for a walk and try and get the labour started, and then basically if I wasn't in labour within 2 hours, they would give me the option of having some oxytocin. And then they said if I declined that, and then if I wasn't in labour after 4 hours, they would then kind of have to get things moving. So I agreed and I was happy with that plan. So we went off around the hospital. This time, I think it must have been about 5:30, 6 o'clock. And we were walking around the hospital and it was really fun actually because the corridors were completely empty because it was a Sunday night and it was just completely dead. And it was, yeah, quite fun. Me and Matt were just walking around and chatting and, you know, getting excited about the evening ahead. And then I started getting some contractions. So we were timing them and they actually came on really, really quickly. Once I had one, they just came. So Matt was timing and I was getting 3 contractions in 10 minutes. They were lasting about a minute, about a minute, 45 seconds. And I was able to talk through them and kind of carry on walking at the start. And then they just became quite intense and I had to stop. I was holding on to the side and I was just really concentrating on my breathing. I just had my eyes shut and I was, just breathing the pain away. Then I said to Matt, I think we probably should get back to the ward because we were actually quite far away at this point. So we headed back, and by the time I got back to labour ward, things were really ramping up. I couldn't talk through them. I was struggling to breathe through them, to be honest. I was kind of bent over the bed and just taking some really deep breaths, and Matt was helping me at this point put my TENS machine on. So I had a back-to-back labour with Daisy, and to be honest with Riley, I knew when I started with my contractions that he was back to back. I was really hopeful the whole way along my pregnancy that he wouldn't be, but yeah, he was, because I could feel the pain right in my back, and the pain in my back was a lot worse actually than the contractions. So I had a TENS machine, which is amazing. So if you're about to have a baby and you don't have a TENS machine, I would definitely recommend to use one. I never bought one, I just hired one from a company, and you can find companies online to hire them from. So I put the TENS machine on my back. So you have these like sticky pads, and there was 4 of them like this kind of on my back, and then they have the electrical wires that come off of them, and you hold like this little handheld machine and you basically compress the intensity up and down, and there's a boost button if you need a real increase of the intensity of the TENS. And it's a weird thing to describe. It's just basically like electrical impulses that stimulate, I think it's your muscles and your nerves, and it makes your body create endorphins, which are like the happy hormones or the happy things, I'm not sure, and it basically is like a natural pain relief, and I would say it really, really works. So I've had 2 back-to-back labours now, and yeah, I 100% would recommend it. So yeah, so we had the TENS machine at that point, and then I called the midwife in to like have a bit of a chat, and I said, you know, things are happening. She was really happy that things were happening, and she offered me some gas and air at that point. I said to her that I really wanted to get in the pool as well, and she said that that's fine. They were just cleaning the pool room down from another lady, so she said that I could get in the pool within the next sort of 30 minutes to an hour. So they were cleaning the room and then they were going to fill it back up for me. So at that point I had my TENS, and then I had some gas and air as well. And then once the pool was ready, I was really, really ready to get in. Last time the pool really helped my back, so I was really excited to get in again to see if it would have the same effect. So we all moved rooms, and I took the TENS machine off because you can't use that in water. And then I got into the pool and I still had the gas, and it was lovely. I mean, the contractions were so intense, and I was in a lot of pain. Obviously, I wouldn't ever want to put anyone off, and I don't want to scare anyone with this birth story, but the pain was quite intense. And I think it was just because they were coming on so fast. The baby was big and he was just coming down so quickly. So I was in the pool, and I was in the pool, I'd say maybe for a couple of hours, and then I felt like I wanted to push, and I said to the midwife, I think, you know, things are happening. And she said to me that because the baby that I was carrying was so like predicted to be so large, they told me that I couldn't actually give birth in the water because of the risk of him getting stuck. They wanted me to then get out of the water and give birth on the bed once I started feeling the urge to push. So I didn't want to do that. I really didn't want to do that. I wanted to stay in the water, but I trusted obviously their professionals, and yeah, I had to listen to them. So I got out of the water and I got onto the bed, and things just seemed to slow down a little bit for me. Although in comparison to my last labour, everything was really quick, it just felt like once I got out of the pool, things weren't happening as much. So I asked to be examined. She examined me, and she told me that I was only 5 centimetres, and that, you know, I shouldn't have the urge to push. And I suddenly just felt really deflated and confused, and then I suddenly got really upset and panicky because I thought, I can't do this for another 5 centimetres. I started screaming. I got back in the pool because she was like, well, you're not anywhere near giving birth, so yeah, happy days, get back in the pool. And at that point I was so disappointed and I was so panicked that I had to do this for another 5 centimetres that I just started screaming for an epidural. In my first birth with Daisy, I just managed on gas and air and it was fine, but I felt like, gosh, this pain was just next level with this baby. And it's crazy because you think with a second time birth, you're kind of, you know what to expect, everything's kind of stretched before, so I expected things to just generally be easier. And although they were quicker, I wouldn't say they were easier. The midwife went to go and find the anaesthetist to basically come down and get me one, and then she came back and she told me that the anaesthetist was in theatre with an emergency, so he was unavailable and there wasn't anyone else. So she basically just told me that I can't have an epidural, and I think at that point, I mean, I'd already lost my mind, but I lost it. I lost it even more. I just started screaming in the pool. I was screaming that I couldn't do it. I was screaming that she had to call another anaesthetist from home to come in. Honestly, I was being really silly. And I kind of caught myself. I was in the pool and I said to myself, like, stop. Like, I was in my own mind, in my head, I just was like, you need to stop now, because the only person that you're distressing is yourself. Like, you need to be calm. Like, you can't be giving birth to a baby losing your mind and being so silly. I just couldn't. Like, every contraction just was coming on top of the other one. I wasn't getting any time to catch my breath. My back was hurting. I just felt like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And then I'd say maybe an hour later, so at this point it must have been maybe 10:30, 11:15. At this point, yeah, I'd been like, you know, hoping that I was going to get an epidural, you know, if he was going to come out of theatre or something and be able to give it to me. I was still hopeful that I might get one, and so I was still asking for it. I was begging. I started begging Matt. Matt was like, I can't do anything for you. And actually, thinking about it, with Daisy, I did loads of hypnobirthing when I was pregnant because I had the time, whereas with my second baby, I was looking after Daisy as a toddler, and I had no time to practice any hypnobirthing, practice any breathing, and I kind of thought, oh, I remember it, like I remember it from before, it wasn't that long ago that I had Daisy. But actually, in hindsight, I really should have sat down and reread my hypnobirthing books. I should have practiced my breathing, I should have listened to some positive affirmations, but I didn't do any of that, and actually I really regretted it. So anyway, it must have been, yeah, just before 11, and I did start getting that urge to push again. I mean, I kind of still had it from 5 centimeters, but I'm not really sure why I felt like I wanted to push that early on. But this time I could feel his head, and I was like, yeah, he's coming. So I quickly hopped out of the pool. That was really awkward, and they kind of helped me across the room, and I got onto the bed. I got onto all fours, and I was trying to birth him like that. And I turned around and I said to the midwife, I don't think this is right. And with Daisy, she came out like this. So her head was born with her hand up, and she was back to back. So she was in a really awkward position. And I said to the midwife, I think this is happening again. And she was talking me through sort of my pushing, and she was trying to guide the head out. And then she realised that Riley's hand was up like this. And yeah, that was so disappointing. She said, oh, his hand's up. And she was talking to the other midwife at the time. And I just felt like my heart drop, and I was like, oh great, like this is going to be difficult then, because it was quite hard to birth Daisy like that. And obviously he was back to back as well, so he literally came out the exact same. So I was pushing, and then his head came out and his hand came out, and I was really proud of myself that I did it. And then it was just a case of getting his body out. And unfortunately at that moment his shoulders did get stuck. So they'd been warning me obviously in my whole pregnancy that my baby's big and there is a risk of shoulder dystocia, and I kind of disregarded it. I thought, oh, that's 1 in 150, it's not going to be me. But yeah, his shoulders did get stuck, and they pulled the emergency cord, and a load of doctors and nurses and midwives came into the room. And they told me at that point that I had to get onto my back, and they put my legs up really high above my head, and one person was pushing on my tummy. And then, to be honest, I had my eyes shut the whole time because I was scared and I just didn't want to see what was happening. And also I was in a lot of pain. I just needed to have my eyes shut, I think, at that point. They basically were trying to maneuver him out, so I had like people kind of tugging on him a little bit and then pushing on my tummy. And luckily he was fine. He was born, and he didn't need any, I didn't need to be cut or anything for him to come out. So he was born, but then unfortunately he was really blue and he was struggling to take his first breath. So they cut the cord and they took him out of the room, and they gave him some breaths. So they just gave him a few breaths of oxygen, and then he did start breathing on his own, and I could hear him outside the room crying, which was such a relief. I was so scared. And then they brought him back through to me and they put him on my chest, and luckily from then on out he was absolutely fine. It was just a really horrible, scary 10 minutes, but then he was fine. So I really hope that people aren't watching this video like freaking out, thinking, oh my gosh, that sounds awful and that's gonna be me, and you know, I don't want to scare anyone. I just want to give an honest, real birth story, and this is what happened. But I mean, I wouldn't say that I had a really negative experience. Obviously, I've got an amazing baby boy and he was absolutely fine after he took his first breath. But it was, yeah, it was scary and it was painful, I'm not gonna lie. But, you know, he's here and it hasn't put me off. Like, I would have another baby. So, yeah, I don't know. They basically told me after everything had kind of calmed down a little bit that if I was to have a third, they would recommend me having a C-section, just because I've had 2 babies like coming out like this now and back to back, and you know, obviously Riley was big and that was why he got stuck. So they kind of advised that. I kind of like put that to the back of my mind for now, because who knows, we might not have 3, and yeah, I don't know, it's a long way off. I don't want to think about it now. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to say that, you know, I haven't been scarred for life from it. We made it and he's here and he's fine. And obviously I'm so grateful to the doctors and the midwives for getting him out safely. And yeah, I couldn't have been happier with how they were. Then when he got put onto my chest, I was giving him lots of kisses and I was looking at him, and oh, he was just, yeah, so lovely. And they were all saying, oh wow, he looks really big. And he did look big, to be fair. I was like, okay, yeah, I do believe everyone now, he is a big baby. And then he had his first feed, so I breastfed Daisy for a year, and I really wanted to be able to breastfeed Riley as well. So I was so happy when he latched on and he had his first feed, and my colostrum was flowing, and yeah, I just felt so happy and relieved with that. We spent some time on the labour ward with him, and then I had a shower, and then I got taken down to the postnatal ward. I was hoping to be able to go home because there was nothing wrong with me. I hadn't lost a lot of blood, I hadn't had any stitches. I don't know how I got away with that, but I did. So I just had a graze, which was absolutely amazing. And yeah, I felt literally fine actually. But then because Riley had had the shoulder dystocia, they wanted to check him for 12 hours at least, sort of post-birth, and also they needed to get a paediatric doctor from the paediatric ward to come and check his arm because his arm was stuck and his shoulder was stuck and he was all pulled out at a weird angle. They had to check that all of his nerves were still okay. So we got onto postnatal, and it must have been at this time kind of 3:30. He was born at 11:20, and then yeah, 3:30 we got taken to postnatal. The stay on postnatal was absolutely fine. We decided to have a private room on postnatal because last time we were on the ward and it was just so noisy and I didn't get any sleep and it was really stressful. So yeah, we had a private room, which was amazing. Matt had to go home, unfortunately, because of COVID, but then he came back in the morning, so that was fine. And then yeah, we basically got Riley all checked out. His arms were absolutely fine, so that was a relief, and everything else about him was fine, so he had no lasting effects from the shoulder dystocia. And then we basically got discharged and we came home, and then we moved house. So yeah, it was really, like, it was just the most crazy week. But yeah, that was it basically. And he was £9.1, so he was a big boy, but you know, he could have been bigger had I have waited another few days for the induction. So I was really glad actually that he was induced when he was. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that, and I really hope I didn't put anyone off or scare anyone. I just wanted to be open and honest and yeah, just tell you exactly how it was. And we're still here, we're smiling, we're fine. So yes, I will leave it there guys, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!